by Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj. Today, the title of the topic is Instructing Our Mind with Love. We are trying to understand this book as instructions to the mind. In accordance with this Sankhya philosophy, the mind is one of the sense organs called Antahakarana. We have five external sense organs that collect information from the outside world. And there is one internal sense organ that processes this information. However, this sense organ, Antahakarana or Swantaha, as Raghunath Das Goswami calls it in the first verse, has one amazing quality. It does not obey us. All the other senses more or less obey us, but the mind will think what it wants to because it has a certain independence. On the one hand, this is a blessing because the mind is given to us so that it can prove something that even we don't believe in. The mind is constantly proving to us that we are God, even though deep down in ourselves we do not believe it. But this same blessing is also a curse for us because we can't easily change that programming. Krishna says that depending on what the program is, our mind is, we obtain our next body. At the time of death, we cannot tell our mind, think about Krishna. Even throughout our life, we cannot do it. The mind thinks what it wants to. The meaning of human life and the meaning of sadhana are to replace this program in the mind and teach the mind how to think of Krishna. So there are basically two ways to do this. One way is to explain the mind that this is good and it is necessary. The mind will reluctantly do what it has understood to be useful. We can logically convince the mind. Therefore, the Shastra have their own logic, and generally, people are attracted to logic, various evidences, and philosophy. When someone proves to us in detail that God exists, that Krishna is God, we think, quote, well, I will think a bit about that in my spare time, unquote. This is one way and it worked to a certain extent. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that this method is abala. Abala means deprived of power or having no power. The other way to change the program in our mind is to somehow or other instill it with spiritual desire, with attachment, because the mind thinks of that to which it is attached. We can understand very well what our mind is attached to. You can try an experiment by setting yourself in a room for a day and say aloud any thought that crosses your mind. Record it and then listen to it. Or better yet, sit down and chant and listen to what the mind is thinking about it. In Sanskrit, the word raga comes from the root ranj, which means to color. The mind is colored in a certain way and rushes to where its attachment is. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained a form of spiritual practice of putting spiritual attachment in the mind. The only problem is where to get spiritual attachment from. The attachment can only be obtained from someone who has it very strong in their heart. Therefore, the method of Raganuga sadhana is not meditation only on Krishna, but also meditation on those who have affection for Krishna. So when we understand that we need the same love that lies in the heart of a pure associate of Krishna and nothing else, we start thinking about them. Thinking about them, we try to show in the same way they show. These attempts eventually lead to their bestowing this affection on us out of their mercy. Affection is causeless. It is the result of their mercy, which naturally comes to those who are trying to follow in the footsteps of Krishna's great devotee. So we will stop here because there is some other point will be raised, so we will read tomorrow. And we will be continuing reading Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. We are on volume number 4, chapter 5, title, A Lot of Ground to be Covered, a lot of ground to be covered. So the new topic we will be embarking upon, Gorakhpur, February 3rd, 1971. The Ardha Kumbh Mela over. Some devotees went to Delhi, some to Bombay, and others to Calcutta. Prabhupada and the remaining devotees went to Gorakhpur, a 10-hour journey on the antiquated meter gauge railway. Prabhupada had been invited by his only disciple in Gorakhpur, Dr. R.P. Rao, now Ramanand, a research chemist who had met Prabhupada in San Francisco, taken initiation in 1967, and since returned to his family and 4 children to teach chemistry at Gorakhpur University. Prabhupada and his disciple moved into crowded quarters at Ramanand modest home. Haribol, someone is unmuted. Haribol. Osho Mahan Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Prabhupada and his disciple moved into crowded quarters at Ramanand's modest home, and about 100 people attended Prabhupada's lecture that evening. Prabhupada already had plans for a Radha Krishna temple on the Gorakhpur University campus, as well as accredited courses and degrees in Krishna consciousness, BA, MA, PhD, and he envisioned always some outcome on the music. There you go. And so he envisioned graduate going out to teach Krishna consciousness in school, colleges, and temples all over the world. He inspired Ramanand and a group of his friends to form a committee to introduce Krishna consciousness within the university, and he initiated about 1 dozen disciples. Since they all professed to be following the rules against illicit sex, intoxication, and gambling, and had been lifelong vegetarians, he waived the usual 6-month trial period. He asked them to chant 16 rounds daily and to make their city Krishna conscious. In his absence, they should maintain Ramanand's house as an active ISKCON center and try to establish courses in Krishna consciousness at the university. This is in Banaras, February 6, 1971. Mr. Gorkishore was counting heavily on Prabhupada's participation in the upcoming celebration. The climax of the week-long observance of Lord Chaitanya's visit to Banaras would be a parade. Mr. Gorkishore said, and Prabhupada and his disciple had an important part in it. Newspaper articles, handbills, and loudspeaker cards has announced throughout the city the presence of Srila Prabhupada and his foreign disciples. The devotees sensed they were being treated like entertainers, expected to perform as if under contract, but without salary. On the day of the procession of Prabhupada rode in a silver chariot, the kind customarily used in extravagant wedding processions. The chariot was pulled by a pair of white horses wearing silver crowns and decorative blankets. The leading float in the parade bore a 6-foot statue of Lord Chaitanya in yellow neem wood. Next followed a file of decorated elephants. One elephant carried a banner reading Hare Nam Eva Kevalam. One carried actors dressed as Lord Ram and Sita. Another carried 2 actors dressed as Radha and Krishna, who waved to the crowds, and another a picture of Lord Chaitanya and his associate performing Sankirtan. Next came a decorated flatbed truck with children portraying Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, chanting and dancing. Then followed a series of professional kirtan groups and Prabhupada's foreign disciple dancing and performing kirtan. Behind the devotees, Srila Prabhupada rode in his chariot. On either side of the chariot walked a devotee fanning Srila Prabhupada with a chamra whisk, while Prabhupada sat with his right hand in his bead bag, his left hand on his cane. He was dressed in silk with pearl buttons on his kurta. A white patch of sandalwood paste covered his forehead. He didn't wave or smile or turn to see the crowd, but sat calmly chanting Hare Krishna on his beads. Following Prabhupada's chariot was a Sahanai group, several more kirtan parties, and finally another statue of Lord Chaitanya carried by 8 men. The festival committee said 300,000 attended. double what they would have had without Prabhupada and his foreign disciples. The processions was over, however, and as the star attraction, Prabhupada had made his appearance and drawn a large crowd. And now nothing more was required. He felt tired. He and his disciple were taken to a nearby dharmashala and served a feast. Prabhupada remained grave and as soon as possible returned to his quarters and his regular schedule. A student at the University of Banaras who had met Prabhupada at the Allahabad Mela stopped by to visit. The boy's father had given him a biography of Lord Chaitanya as a gift for Prabhupada. And when the boy showed Prabhupada a picture of his father, Prabhupada said, "Yes, your father is a devotee, so why don't you also take initiation?" Very good. The boy was hesitant. As he walked with Prabhupada in the garden, Prabhupada said, quote, "You have got the seed of devotional service from your father, so you must now cultivate," unquote. "But how can I save my head?" the boy inquired. "I'm a university student." "No, it is a custom. You should save once and then you can keep short hair." "But how can I wear tilak? They will laugh at me." Prabhupada said the boy should not fear criticism. He should become a soldier of Krishna. Just as the government honors its valiant soldiers, Krishna rewards a devotee who accepts difficulties and criticism on his behalf. "What about Guru Dakshina?" the boy asked. Quote, "Guru Dakshina is just a formality," Prabhupada said. "It was a custom in olden days that when someone gets initiation, he goes to the various homes. It is a sign that you have become a servant of your Guru. You are prepared to beg alms for your Guru. It is whatever you give." The boy returned home and told his father. The next day was an auspicious day. His father says, "The appearance day of Lord Nityananda, a good day to receive spiritual initiation." So the next day on Nityanand Trayodasi, Srila Prabhupada initiated the boy, giving him the name Niranjan Das. When Prabhupada asked Niranjan if he had any questions, Niranjan said he wanted to know his eternal relationship with Krishna. Was it as servant, as friend, or as parent? Prabhupada replied that servitude was the common ground in all transcendental relationship with Lord Krishna. By chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Niranjan would become more and more purified and then realize more and more his relationship with Krishna. Niranjan asked how he would understand his relationship. "No, don't jump," Prabhupada said. Quote, "You have some Shraddha, faith from your father, and now you are associating with the devotees and chanting. Gradually you will realize." Niranjan agreed to be patient. Prabhupada asked Niranjan to arrange a lecture for him on campus And Niranjan, with the help of his uncle, a philosophy professor, got Prabhupada a speaking engagement for his last morning in Banaras. So on the day Prabhupada was to leave, he met with John Grisher, the American photographer traveling with him and his party since Surat. John, who had shaved his mustache and thought a lot about his future, came to say goodbye until Bombay, where they would meet again in few weeks. John found Prabhupada in the courtyard, enjoying the sunshine and eating gore, date sugar, from a clay pot. Prabhupada asked that the pot be broken and distributed to John and the other devotees present. And while John sat licking gore from a piece of clay pot, Prabhupada talked about his boyhood in Calcutta. So John is explaining that in his own word as follows. Prabhupada was talking in his accented, rhythmic English about his boyhood days in Calcutta, and he described a gracious city before the crowding and squalor of today. As a schoolboy, he had been splendid Victorian building of white marble, surrounded by stately lawns and trees. Suddenly Prabhupada looked over at me and laughed. Good. So John, he said, I think Krishna has captured you. I agreed. I had known it for quite a while. But now Srila Prabhupada confirmed it. When Prabhupada was leaving Banaras to return to Gorakhpur, many of his disciples went to the wrong train station. While Prabhupada and a few followers waited at the correct train station, Kausalya asked him, how did you like it here in Banaras, Srila Prabhupada? It is all right, he said, indifferently. Did you have a nice rest? She asked, trying to think of some positive aspect of the visit. Rest I can have any time, said Prabhupada, but I like to be with my devotees. Surrounded by luggage, Prabhupada sat on the bench while Tamal Krishna and Shyam Sundar ran from the ticket office to the train and back. The train would leave soon, but where were the other devotees? Prabhupada watched as his spiritual sons argued with the conductor, telling him the train couldn't go until the other devotees arrived. They do not know what they are doing, Prabhupada says, and he smiled. So, changing the topic again, they came to Gorakhpur. This is on February 10th, 1971. On hearing that Prabhupada wanted to preach in Gorakhpur, Hanuman Prasad Podar, eminent head of the Gita Press Publishing Company, offered one of his properties, a two-story house, his former residence, known as Krishna Niketan. Mr. Podar, who was bedridden in another house in Gorakhpur, had first met Prabhupada in 1962, and he appreciated Prabhupada's mission. When Prabhupada received permission to use the Krishna Niketan, he acted quickly. It was not proper, he said, that the deities of Radha and Krishna he had bought from Calcutta had been packed away in a trunk after the Earth Kumbh Mela. They had already been worshipped, so their worship should not be stopped. The deities have to be installed tomorrow, he said, and he put Kaushalya and Nandakumar in charge of the preparation. Seeing that Nandakumar and Kaushalya needed more help, Prabhupada called for all his disciples, and soon 20 American devotees were scurrying about, preparing for the next day's festival. Prabhupada directed the devotees in cleaning the temple room from ceiling to floor and in building the altar. He asked Himavati to donate her fanciest sari, which he hung like a curtain before the table that was to be the deity's altar. The altar needed a backdrop, he said, and while Kausalya stood on the table, he handed her pieces of colored fabric to arrange against the wall. The backdrop completed, Prabhupada took a rug a devotee had bought in Allahabad and placed it over the table altar. That night, Prabhupada surveyed the temple room. Quote, "Oh, it is very nice," he said. He retired to his room, and two devotees stayed up all night sewing cloths for Radha and Krishna. The next morning, the deities were placed on the altar, and the devotee resumed their worship, offering them prasadam and arti 6 times a day. The devotees were living in an ISKCON temple atmosphere for the first time since they arrived in India, and their lives become regulated and secure. The weather warmed, and the devotees, many of whom had exhausted their health in Allahabad, felt relief. The Gorakhpur temple was situated on several acres of agricultural land outside the city. It was a peaceful place, and during the day, Prabhupada would rest as the sunshine came through the window and warmed his body. In the evening, guests would come for kirtan and Prabhupada's lecture. Speaking on the sixth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada referred repeatedly to Sridhar Swami's commentary from the 12th century. Sridhar Swami said that simply by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra without any regulative principles, one becomes liberated. So how is that? Sridhar Swami replies also that there are regulative principles. The idea is that chanting of the holy name is so powerful that it can immediately liberate the chanter. But because we are prone to fall down again, therefore there are regulative principles. Quote, morning, noon, and evening, we should daily chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra with devotion and faith. And by doing this, one can avoid volumes of miserable conditions of life simply by chanting. So one should be so much careful and faithful. You should know that as soon as you are chanting, Krishna is dancing on your tongue. Therefore, how much careful and respectful we should be when we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Each night, Prabhupada would take the commentaries of Sridhar Swami as his text. Quote, So Sridhar Swami gives this example that without knowing that there is a very nice medicine, a man takes so many thousands of medicines. Similarly, the great stalwart leaders of religion, religious principles, without knowing this Hare Krishna mantra, take so many troublesome ritualistic ceremonies. Actually, there is no need. The whole thing is, Siddhar Swami is giving the stress very strongly that you can simply chant Hare Krishna mantra without understanding any ritualistic ceremonies. Sridhar Swami's commentary was filled with quotations from various scriptures about the supreme benefit of chanting the holy name of Krishna. I think today in the morning, because some devotees, they are so attached to chant the holy name, they join early in the morning. So 3 o'clock, I don't know, suddenly it appeared on my phone, the 7 benefits of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. I read it, we have to read over and over. Then we will get convinced. Hare Krishna, it just appeared on my screen, so I don't want to spend the time to, but it was very nice. It's in Sishtastikam, verse number 1. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given these 7 benefits. Very nice to read. Then Sridhar Swami says, Akhila Chestitam. That means that any endeavor for pushing on Krishna's glories, that is as good as chanting the holy name. When you go out for canvassing, for pushing on this movement, people might think that you are not chanting. But suppose you are canvassing for a life member, that topic is also as good as chanting Hare Krishna mantra, because it is Akhila Chestitam. One's life must be dedicated simply for Krishna's service. These are the one of the principles of surrender. There are 6 principles. One is to dedicate our life for Krishna's service. Haribol. Speaking before his Indian audience, Srila Prabhupada also told about his preaching in the West. One evening he gave a personal history describing how his spiritual master, on their first meeting, had immediately told him to preach Lord Chaitanya's message to the English-speaking world. Hare Krishna. So I think we should stop. We should be punctual in our practice. Before the devotees leave, I would like to offer our humble obeisances at the desk of the Lotus Feet. They are so kind to take austerity to join early in the morning by reciting the prayer Vanchakalpatarubhasya Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.